earlier on in the show, we decided to fill out our own Hall of Fame ballots for Cooperstown. We came up with a list of 7 names. I don't believe the list that will be spat out by the actual baseball writers of America will be nearly that large later on today when it is announced on MLB Network at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And part of that broadcast that starts at 3 p.m. Eastern on MLB Network, Peter Gammons back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing very well. It's and I was going to just throw you a football question. Is Deshaun Watson's graduate assistant quarterback coach Billy Spires going to get an NFL job now?
Billy Spires, is that who that is? Are you serious?
Yeah, it's actually a great story. I mean, he was a really good major league player, but he was a tremendous punter at Clemson as well as shortstop. And Dabo Swinney found out he was coaching in high school baseball and football, called him up and said, hey, we have a program. We can come finish your degree. So Billy Spires at 50 got in for his senior year at Clemson, and they made him a graduate assistant helping the punters. He was so good with the quarter. He ended up being Deshaun Watson's graduate assistant coach.
No kidding.
So we go from a number 1 pick in baseball to coaching one of the most amazing college quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Next thing you're going to tell me Glenn Hubbard is on the Lane Kiffin's staff. I'm just trying to fill in blanks here. Wow, that's something I did not know. I'm so glad that you.
Well, so Buck Showalter and I've been kidding that Seth Smith, who was Eli Manning's backup at the University of Mississippi, is going to end up going back for his senior year and becoming a graduate assistant there.
Unbelievable. Peter Gammons joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who do you think we're going to hear at 6 o'clock Eastern tonight, Peter? What's your best guess?
I think it'll be Raines, Bagwell. I think that's going to be it. Trevor Hoffman is pretty close, and Pudge Rodriguez is pretty close. But I just don't know. I mean, it may be. This whole thing of people getting the ballots, and then it's like political polling now at this point. But I think I'm guessing it'll be the 2. We had a long meeting this morning about it, but it's still a possibility that it's Hoffman, and it could be as many as 4.
Well,
so it would be pretty unusual. But Raines and Bagwell look like they're in.
Well, that would be good. I mean, but why is it so difficult to pry open the doors of Cooperstown for a large gathering of people? I mean, why is it so tough to get in, Peter?
I think it's that there are so many people voting with different ideas. I mean, it's so confusing now. And I mean, I get that ballot around the 1st of December, and I mean, this year I didn't mail it until the 29th of December, just because I agonize over it so much. The whole question of Bonds and Clemens, for instance, and there are other things we just disagree about different things, or people argue about. There are some people that think there are only 2 or 3 that show to be absolutely special. I'm not one of those people, and I think there are certain people like Mike Mussina that I think are unquestioned Hall of Famers, and Curt Schilling too. But there's just so much debate over it. I mean, I'm with all due credit to the NHL Hall of Fame in Toronto. I don't think there's quite as much debate over whether it's Dave Keon or Alex Delvecchio.
But I mean, let's talk about the so-called steroid players here, Peter, because Bud Selig's getting in. He was voted in by what's now called the Today's Era ballot, I guess formerly the Veterans Committee. And if he, obviously he did a lot. He was there for quite some time. The wild card, I think, is a tremendous addition to Major League Baseball's playoffs and something that should live forevermore. But he was the guy who was there when the whole chicks dig the long ball was advanced and then no longer became very funny. And if he is getting into the Hall of Fame, and managers whose wins and losses were definitely affected by players who were tainted by steroids, why shouldn't the players be allowed in?
Well, I think it is a really good point. And I've really come to the point where baseball really didn't direct, and I think it goes back before. I was actually talking to Tom Verducci about a couple of guys from that I think they're revered that people would never think of, and that from the 70s and 80s that I'm actually, I don't know, but I think they probably were later in their careers, and the longevity definitely helped them get into the Hall of Fame. Just as, the amphetamines, there was a great piece written on Fangraphs last year about the impact of amphetamines, which were, they're now banned, but people are, they didn't add to home runs. Well, they did. I'm sure there are 500 home run guys and people who get in because of that supposed magic number, that they wouldn't have gotten there without being able to greenie up 2-3 days a week, sometimes every day. So I'm really at the point, once baseball put in the testing program, which began in the 2005 season, if a guy flunks the drug tests unequivocally, at that point, I say, too bad, you're out. And Rafael Palmeiro, he had 3,020 hits, and he had, I think it was 589 home runs. He didn't make it because he was in that first year when he was suspended, and he never got voted. He would have been voted in had it not been for that suspension. Manny Ramirez, to me, is not. I would never vote for Manny Ramirez as much as I love Manny as a person, and realized he was a great hitter, but. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Alex Rodriguez. He's not going to get in either because he broke baseball's laws. And people say to me, well, steroids were illegal in the 80s and 90s, and they were in certain areas of society. But, do we then take Babe Ruth out of the Hall of Fame because he drank during Prohibition? No. And also the business of whether guys use Andro or whatever it is, but and that's McGuire was admitted to being one. Bagwell admitted to it, but I can remember going to this gym in Boston. I didn't exactly turn out looking like Jeff Bagwell or Mark McGuire, but it's I would be in it, and that stuff was available all the time. There were trainers who, used that stuff with athletes or people who wanted to be ripped. They had no idea how what they would turn out to be. There was a lot of that fat burning stuff. There was a pitcher with the Orioles. I can't remember his name. He's a minor league pitcher. He died from using that stuff.
Oh my gosh!
And so. There was so much that we didn't know, and I don't think Bud really knew it and understood it. And also, if baseball didn't guide players or us at that point between the commissioner's office and the Players Association, maybe we shouldn't be keeping these guys out. And I feel, there's a retrospective with McGuire now. You say, maybe he should have been lasted longer in the voting, and maybe when they get to whatever era that he gets into, maybe he ends up making it. I don't think he will, but I think that it might be fair that he is. It's a very, as I say,
it's a tough subject. It's a very difficult subject, and I could hear you, in your voice where you're kind of going from one side to another on it, and it's it's a thorny issue, and it's going to happen for years and years and years to come. Before I let you go, though, I am mandated to be sitting here in Washington D.C. Is Curt Schilling not getting in because of his political views and also what he's been doing on social media? In a manner that has definitely upset a large amount of people in this country?
I think it has impact. I don't think it's a media conspiracy. I voted for him every time he's been on the ballot, but his numbers have not been. They went down this year, and the percentage went down, which I think I do think some of that social media. I don't think it's his political views, as he keeps saying. It's he's trying to be like Trump, and the media's against me. But I do think that that's created a negative, and I don't think it's fair. For one thing, I just can't wait for the time when a Kurt Schilling, Elizabeth Warren debate is on television. I mean, I think that's going to be one of the greatest things I've ever watched in my life.
Do you think we'll see that? Is Kurt going to run?
Well, he's running for. He says he's going to run for the Senate against Elizabeth Warren.
Wow. I can't. That would be, as you say, a must-see television on that. So, okay, just last one for you. Our ballot, because we put our four together. We went Bonds, Clemens, Hoffman. I love Edgar Martinez. If Ortiz is going to be a first ballot guy down the road, Edgar Martinez is one of the best hitters I've ever seen. Messina, Reigns, and Manny Ramirez made our ballot. Would that be something that would pass muster?
Just except for Manny in my case, just because of he was suspended twice. But I think it's really interesting. Edgar Martinez never got traction because he was supposedly just a DH. But in the games he started in the major leagues, 72% of those were as DH. So, I mean, and therefore, and David Ortiz, 88% of the games he started as a major leaguer were as a DH. So I think that Ortiz has really helped Edgar Martinez's case.
Peter, take care of yourself. We'll see you on MLB Network later on. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks a lot, Rich. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's Peter Gammons, at PGammo on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.